Hi again guys, I'm back for a new video series where I'm going to be playing the same game, Tales of Maj'Eyal, except this time around I'm going to be taking it a little more casual and be a little less informative about it, but if I do go into information, it'll be mostly about what we're going to be doing differently from the last video series. I've decided this time around I'm going to play a different class, something that's not quite so beginner oriented, but something that you will be able to access after playing the game for a little bit. Either it's going to be a default unlock, or it's going to be something that was available from one of the earliest unlocks, and I haven't quite decided yet, but I think I might go with an Arcane Blade. We have all kinds of options here. If you watched my last video series, even if you had moderate success, you should have unlocked the Brawler, the Archmage, the Summoner, and Wormick. Let's see. Possibly the Reaver. Definitely Cursed. Possibly Temporal Wardens. And very, very possibly Mind Slayers. I think what we're going to play here is an Arcane Blade. I have some experience with them. They're one of the early attractive classes to new players. They're available as a default choice. And they're the closest thing to a DPS mage that you can get right out of the gate. They're a melee fighter kind of, or mage fighter kind of character, and they can be kind of difficult to play, and they're not really super accessible to new players. They do take a little getting used to, and there's a lot of traps in their class that can really mislead you early on and make you have kind of a hard time. They're getting changed a bit in the next patch. I don't think that the details have been fully hammered out yet, so this might all be irrelevant in a couple of months, but hopefully enough will stay intact that this will still be a useful guide even then. Now, for Arcane Blade, they're a arcane melee character. You can play all kinds of different classes to get options for them. Cornacs are good because they don't have any negatives and they start with a category point, and there's a lot of things you can potentially spend a category point on as an Arcane Blade. Both of the elf races are okay. Shalor if you want to play more of a caster heavy, Thalor if you don't. But I don't really like the experience penalty on Thalor characters, and they do take a magic penalty at the start. Halflings I don't really think are suitable for Arcane Blade characters because they take a strength penalty, and you need a lot of strength early on just to get your stuff unlocked. It's going to be one of the last stats you actually max, but you really want to get strength to about 40 so you can get all of the talents, or at least 30 with maybe 40 from gear. Dwarves are always a good choice, no matter what you're playing, but we played a dwarf last time, and I don't want to retread old ground. Yeeks aren't really suitable, and the two main undead races, this third one I have down here is an add-on, so we're not going to touch on that one, but both of the undead races can be good Arcane Blades, and you might have undead unlocked, but I don't know if I want to do an undead character. They are kind of... That is tempting. Now, ghouls are an interesting race. They get a bonus to strength and a bonus to con right out of the gate. And they don't get a bonus to magic, but they don't take penalties to it either. They also get a lot of life, the most life per level of any class, have a modest experience penalty. They start with stun resistance, immunity to fear, immunity to bleeds, great poison resistance, and they get a nice talent tree with some of the best talents in the game, but they pay for it all with a 20% speed penalty, which can be pretty rough. You know what? We're going to play a ghoul. And you know what? I'm going to use a custom tile. I'm a donator, and you can get these from donating any amount of money, even like a penny. I donated like $5. I'll probably donate again in the future. When the game goes live on Steam, I understand that the buy-in will give people access to donator features like the custom tiles. And there's all kinds of neat custom tiles in here. You get things for all the different races. I like this one, which is the default tile for worms that walk, because it looks really good when you're playing a ghoul character. It looks kind of like a ghoul, and it's kind of got this like glowing weapons thing going on, and I like to dual wield when I play ghoul characters, so that'll work in the long term. Now, they don't have the paper doll features, so you won't be able to see your equipment on the icon, but it looks pretty neat, and it shows up like this in the character vault on the main ToME website, which reminds me of a neat feature I'm just going to get into real quick while we're working on this. On the ToME website, there is a characters vault, and when you pull up the characters vault, it's probably going to take a while loading since we're actually doing a video on it right now. It'll show you a list of all the recent characters who've gone through here, and as you can see, there's tons of people making characters all the time. And we're just going to search for the character we made earlier. No, why is he not on there? Mirthless. Maybe it'll show up under my username. Okay, I see. Is it NoScript that's doing this? It's like it's mocking me. Alright. Well, we can't find our character for whatever reason. I know he'll be on here somewhere, but in the event that we're not able to locate that character, we'll just pick one at random here off the list. And this is a breakdown of what your character was the last time you were logged onto the game, logged into your online profile. It'll show all of the things that you did with your class build, all the things you did with the gear. And this is really nice if you're going to start a new character and you want to know how a successful character is built. You can find a winner of the class you want to play, and you can take a look at their build and see what they did and take guesses at what order they did things in. And see if that works. I don't recommend doing that. Generally, you want to build to your own playstyle and things like that, but it can give you a nice starting point. So we're going to play a Ghoul Arcane Blade. The Ghoul starting area and the Skeleton starting area is the same, but it's different from everybody else's. They get their own 4-level dungeon. They start on the bottom of the dungeon and they have to work their way up. Arcane Blades have a lot of talent trees. They have much more than the Bulwark, but you're not going to use all of them. Right off the bat, because we're not raising dexterity immediately, I'm going to take a point out of Cunning/Dirty Fighting. Cunning, this particular ability gives you a stun based off of stamina. It's really, really nice, and we might get it eventually when we start raising Cunning, but right now I have no use for it because it's not going to last long enough, and it's probably not going to hit most of the time. So I'm just going to minimize that to get out of the way. And I'm not going to put anything into Spell Earth yet, and I'm not going to put anything into Spell Air. And this seems like a thing that you'd want to put points into. Lightning damage, that's really nice. But no, you kind of want to focus on fire damage on Arcane Blades, at least right now. That may change in 44. So we're going to minimize this, and this leaves us with, 4 talent trees to work with right now, which is pretty manageable. We get the combat techniques tree that we had on our Bulwark with Rush. Rush is good for Arcane Blades. It's not as important, so we don't have to max it right away, but a point in there is going to be useful. We also get Magical Combat, which allows us to channel spells through our weapon, and it'll give us some other effects later on that are really nice, like a really high boost to spell crit and mana regen, and an ability that will basically fire off a ball of elemental damage whenever we get a critical hit. We have Spell/Fire, which has Fireball spells and Fire Breath spells and Inferno spell. A really useful casting spell, or spell tree, and this is one of the main trees you'll use as Archmage as well. So if you have your eyes on Archmage but haven't unlocked it yet, this is a great tree. And Spell Enhancement, which will give you some bonuses to the attacks you do. They're all sustains, basically. Except this one, I think this one's activated, but it lasts a really long time. These are nice when you start dual wielding, which you will do as an Arcane Blade. You just do it kind of later on, because early on two-handed weapons are going to scale a little better with where you're probably going to be putting a lot of your early points. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to put a bunch of points into magic, and I'm going to get my flame up to the 2nd level. And I'm also, on my generic side, I have a few different options I can put points into. I have the combat training tree. I'm never going to put a single point to Cunning Survival, so I'm just going to minimize that. And we have the combat training, we have Conveyance, which is teleport spells, Aegis, which is heals and shield spell buffs, and the Undead Ghoul tree. And this is the reason you play a Ghoul character. And the Skeletons will have a similar tree. Skeletons will probably synergize a little bit more with Arcane Blade, but I really hate how long they take to level. I'm kind of impatient. So, Ghoul gets 4 talents. One will give them a +2 bonus to Strength and Constitution per point. One of them will give them basically a free rush ability. One of them is Retch, which will put a giant AoE of blight damage on the ground and heal the caster for every round they stand in it. And the last one will apply a disease to the target. This ability is mostly useful for characters who are playing Reavers. Ghouls synergize really well with Reavers, but we're not going to use it as an Arcane Blade, so we'll probably never put a point into that. I'm going to take the heal because that's going to be the most useful, because ghouls and skeletons and undead in general can't use infusions, which means no regeneration infusion, which means their only means of healing is magical or through natural regeneration, but they can't, use runes in combat to do that. Instead, they get runes, and they can only use runes. So we have a rune of shielding, which will absorb 100 points of damage over 5 turns. We open up in a room with a Necromancer, and he's going to be really hard to beat if you don't use the shield rune. This fight is basically teaching you that your shield rune is your replacement for regeneration. And he drops an item, an artifact, right off the bat. He will always drop this, and it's good that he does because it's the only way you can enter human settlements. Whatever you do, never get rid of this item. Don't sell it, don't transmogrify it, don't leave it on the floor. You have to have this to play a ghoul or play a skeleton. You have to. You won't be able to complete the main quest, and you won't be able to get into a lot of dungeons if you don't have that cloak. Now, this dungeon is really difficult from the start. There's a lot of enemies in here that can kill you very easily, especially as a ghoul. Because you move slower, you don't have the option to run, so you have to plan things a little bit better. It's easier as an Arcane Blade because you have ranged damage attacks that hit really, really hard. Like, this fire attack will kill pretty much everything it hits within a few rounds from the dot effect that it leaves after it kills it, if it doesn't kill them in one shot. So, we're going to be abusing it pretty heavily. In the current version of ToME, Arcane Blades do not start with any form of mana regen. They have to use a rune to do it. And they get mana regeneration eventually, but it takes a little while to get there. We found a nice weapon here, too. This might be a pretty easy playthrough. At least through the starter dungeon. It will get hard eventually. I've only had limited success with Arcane Blade characters. I've always wanted to win with one, but they get pretty difficult later on to play, but they do have really insanely high damage. The last Arcane Blade I got to the ambush, I managed to end the entire combat in about 3 rounds, which is absolutely crazy to me. Don't really need any of this. The cloak might be alright, but we're pretty much stuck with this for a while. Plus, it's got nice physical power and spell power, and we use both of that. I forgot to put on my sustains. That was foolish. Okay. Arcane Combat is a sustained ability. 23% of the time, it will cast whatever your bolt spell is. It'll be Flame or Lightning Bolt or Earthen Missiles later on. And it's a random chance between those 3. Which is why I recommend not putting any points into the Lightning Bolt spell. The Lightning Bolt spell just does less damage than Fireball or than Flame right now. And if you have the Lightning Bolt spell, it will split between one or the other. Oh, crap. That was close. We have a vault here. I'm going to stay away from these. The vaults in the Undead starting area are really a trap. They're incredibly dangerous. You're almost never going to get away with it. And, especially as a ghoul, because you can't run away from anything. You're sort of stuck. If you end up fighting an enemy like a skeleton warrior in the first room, which you almost always will, he's just going to destroy you before you know what to do. I will do this vault over here though, because the enemy that spawns in here you can easily outrun and pick off at range. I think we got him. Now, you don't ever want to melee that skeleton warrior because it hits really, really hard, but They run slower than even ghouls, so it's very easy to outrun them and pick them off with ranged attacks. Or, if you're really feeling saucy, you can lead them into an abandoned part of the level and try and phase door out of the room. If you can phase door out of line of sight, they won't follow you. What do we get here? Helmet of Dexterity. Can't use these metal. I can't use these metal armors yet, but I'm going to hold on to them just in case I put a point to that soon. And we can't use totems at all. Totems cannot be used by undead characters because they require equilibrium, and undead characters are unnatural, so they can't get that resource. And I gained a level, so what are we going to put this in? I already have a phase door, so I'm going to put that in armor mastery so I can equip that metal armor I found, and up magic a little bit more. We have a spare class point, but I'm going to save that for now. I'm not going to put a point to this yet. It really only becomes good when you're dual wielding or you have a lot of extra mana available. At this point, the sustain cost on this ability would just put us too low on mana, and we're already having kind of issues with tapping out because I'm not hitting my mana surge enough. Oh, there was a treasure chest back there. What is in our treasure chest here? Probably crap, but... Grounding pair of rough leather boots of evasion. Actually, that'll be really useful here in a little bit, so we're going to put that on. There's a skeleton mage in this room, and he is hurting me really bad. Lucky Blink put me right next to him. Now, the main difference between runes and infusions, I find, is that runes tend to be a little more specialized in their use. The only one that's general purpose good is probably the shielding rune, and they're really hard to come by. They're incredibly rare. You usually only find a few a game. So it adds a nice layer of difficulty to undead characters to not have access to that, especially early on when those runes and infusions are the most useful. Like this right here, if I'd found that on a character that could use it, that would have been like, oh man, I'm going to make it to level 10 on this character without dying, but because I can't use it, I'm out of luck. Now, if it had been a teleport rune, I'd be in business. Okay. Wow, that's some bad luck. Right at the entrance. Holy crap. So the half-finished Bone Giant is the last boss of the Undead starting area. He does not have a lot of health, but he hits like a truck. So we're going to try our best to stay alive here. Thankfully, unlike other bosses, he will not push things out of the way to get to you. Oh, shit. And we already had a loss. Oh, we killed the boss. That's nice. Take you with me. I've never gotten that achievement before. Well, normally I will suicide a character if I die in the starting zone, but that'd be kind of boring to watch, so... From the loot, we get a long, sharp scalpel and some gloves. Let's put on the gloves and let's take a look at that scalpel. I'm going to hold on to this, because I like having this for early dual wielding. It's not really great, but with how huge the armor penetration on it is, it basically ignores armor. I can't equip it yet because it requires too much cunning, but I'll probably up my cunning a little bit to put that on. Oh, God, why did I do that? I misaimed my fireball. Salul Rarwen, the giant rabbit, a boss rodent with shield wall and onslaught, which tells me he's probably a bulwark? Shame he's a rabbit. What a weird boss. That was an easy level. Holy crap. What did he drop? Star Killer, Steel War Axe. Not really great, but it was a free item, so I'm not going to complain about it. And we had a rare belt here somewhere, and I'm going to use that rare belt. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot for cunning with the level ups we just gained so I can start dual wielding already. I wasn't expecting that this early, but when you have a couple nice weapons fall in your lap, there's no reason not to start. And we're just going to dump some abilities into off-spec things and prerequisites. I'm going to put 1 point into Fiery Hands. I generally will max this kind of late, and I like to save points here, or distribute them kind of sparingly. This ability that we just unlocked, Arcane Cunning, is something we are definitely going to want to max eventually, because we will maximize our cunning late in the game, because it increases our spell power and our critical hit chance, and that's going to be a huge source of damage for us when we unlock this last talent in the tree at level 12. And we've got our next tier of prerequisites open. I'm going to put it into Ghoulish Leap, because you can't have too many rushes. And we'll just equip these. And I will turn on Fiery Hands, because now it's actually worth it. Okay. Alright, now we've cleared that floor, we're done with the dungeon. Now once we leave this dungeon, we can never come back. There's no way to access it again, so make sure that you're done with this place before you leave. There was that vault down there, and we might have been able to go down there and fix it, but I don't know about that. I just realized my chat log is on. I'm going to turn that off. Not because I don't like seeing chat, but because that's cluttering the hell out of my video. Alright, we should have just about enough time to blaze through Trollmire real quick. Trollmire for undead characters works the same way it does for human characters and dwarf characters. I generally do it as my second or third dungeon. It's pretty easy. It's always going to be filled with trolls. For undead characters, when you do this, hope for the Troll Hedge Wizard to spawn. He's one of the rare bosses that can sometimes appear here. He has a very nice item, the Rune of Reflection, that he will pretty frequently drop. That is one of the earliest accessible shielding runes, and you can use it in conjunction with your existing rune set, so it's a very nice thing to find, especially early on. Ideally, you won't ever have to buy it from a shop or get it off of a different boss. It's also the earliest Tier 3 artifact you can find, which is really nice if you're playing an anti-magic character and have Spell Blaze remnants. Wow, we found a weird club. I'm going to use that over that rare Randart I found. I'll show you what that does in a second. We use that on our Bulwark forever. We have an Alchemist Escort, and they give us something really useful that we'll probably sink a category point into. And we'll discuss that in a second. But, yep, Crooked Club, that's a great combo for early on. Maybe I'll have the ironic luck of finding all good weapons, but never ever armor on this character, like I usually do. Just to compensate for finding Stray Light Plate Mail at level 12 in my last game. Oof. A nice feature is once you get the flame spell up to level 5, it turns into a bolt, or into a beam, so it'll attack everything in a line. And you'll be able to kill multiple things at once with it. Oh man, I do not think I'm going to be able to save this guy. I'm out of mana completely. Sorry, Alchemist, you're taking one for the team. I probably could have saved if I managed him better. You can right-click on escorts and tell them to wait, but I always forget, and I'm kind of dumb. Found a robe off of some random guy. Silk Current. This is going to be really useful to us. We like armor a little more than this, but movement speed is going to be really helpful on us because we take a 20% penalty to everything right off the bat, so... Oh, we were almost where we needed to drop that escort off at, too. That hurts. Alchemists give you the ability to enchant your equipment with gems, and they give you the ability to break down equipment with gems, which can end up giving you a lot of money over time. It does require a bit of a generic point sink, and really isn't super useful until the end game. But if you can make it to the end game with those alchemist talents, oh man, you will have some awesome gear. Now, we didn't really touch on dual wielding much in the last character because we weren't really doing it. For everyone except Reavers, if you dual wield, you have to use a dagger in your offhand, or a Mind Star, or a whip. It basically has to be a super light weapon, so for most characters it will be just a dagger. Curse can get away with using Mind Stars if they get a Mind Star Mastery Betrayal. Summoners will use Mind Stars as well as Doom, but mostly as a caster capacity. And you can use whips in your offhand, but they scale with exotic weapon proficiency, which most characters don't have. Prox was cake, and he dropped a light amulet. This is going pretty well. Now we have plus 35% movement speed, which completely offsets the 20% penalty we started with. Oh, and a golden belt. That'll be useful. Golden belt has healing mod on it and a bunch of resistances. The Girdle of Calming Waters. See, 20% movement speed and minus 20% fatigue. This is a really useful amulet for Arcane Blade characters. And the Girdle of Calm Waters. 3 willpower gives us extra mana, plus 3 major resists and healing mod. And healing mod will be important later on when we get Wretch, because a lot of our defense comes from standing in goop that we spit up on the floor. I'm not really going to use the Mind Stars. We don't have any way to make them any good for us. Don't really need any of this other stuff. And we'll spend some more points before we continue. Get strength up a bit. And we're going to level strength for a while because of Arcane Feed. This I like maxing immediately because it raises your spell crit and regenerates mana every turn, which is really, really nice. You really want to have that mana regen because it makes it so you can run all the sustains you want without ever having to worry about running out of mana. We're also going to take Teleport in the first level of Shielding. And let's see what to do with these last 2 generic points. I could put those into Arcane Cunning, but it's not really going to be super useful to me right now. I think I'm just going to sink them into Fiery Hands. A little more weapon, or a little more damage when I'm dual wielding is nothing but a good thing. And here's Prox, or not Prox, Bill, and he is a pain in the ass as an Arcane Blade. And I am out of mana. What is wrong with me? But thankfully, with that club we found, we managed to confuse him immediately. Whoa! What did he drop? I've never seen him drop that before. Helm of the Dwarven Emperors. Blindness and confusion immunity, light radius, changes light damage, which isn't useful, but plus magic, armor bonus. This is great. Oh my god, I can't believe we got that this early. That is an awesome helmet for an Arcane Blade. Just awesome. And it has an ability that scales with magic damage, and we're going to be raising the shit out of magic on this character. And we get our first point in Arcane Feed, and our first point in Wretch. We'll just up that a little more. I think we got to get this to 36, and then we can max Arcane Feed, and then after that we're just going to dump every point into magic for quite some time. Nothing else I want from here. Okay, we are now in Dearth. Now, since we're undead, we don't ever have any reason to go into the infusion shop. Let's see if they have any good weapons or anything for us. Probably not, because the combo of items we have right now are absolutely amazing. Something to keep in mind is, now that we're playing a character... Oh, yes. I'm going to go for this. Let's see if I have the money for it. I do. Excellent. Iron Gauntlets of Sorrow. They give you a huge mental save penalty, which kind of sucks, but they give you plus 11 mind and plus 12 damage per hit. That applies to each of your hands, so when you're dual wielding, that's plus 40 damage. And we're going to do the arena quest, and everything with town works the same way as it does for normal characters when you're playing an undead, as long as you have the Cloak of Deception on. I'll show you what happens if you don't as soon as we get out of here. It'll also be a nice chance to showcase the Ghoul signature ability of Wretch. Yeah, I'm just going to put a couple points into the Ghoul body talent, because I really like this talent, and that'll make it so I can just start sinking my regular stat points into magic early. Nice 36 there, 21 in con, and we haven't put a single point to con yet. Alright, so, if we take off the cloak, immediately everyone does not like us, because we're undead. And we're just going to dump this Wretch on the floor. And every round, Wretch will damage all of our nearby enemies, and it'll heal us for about twice the amount it damages. It's a really nice ability. It's on kind of a long cooldown, but the cooldown gets shorter, and the cooldown stays the same. The duration gets longer, and the radius gets bigger every time you put a point into it. So you want to max that right away, and I always do anyway. Like, I don't think I've ever played a character that didn't have max Wretch as a ghoul, and I don't know if that's what the pros do or whatever, but that's how I prefer to play it. Alright, this video is getting kind of long. We'll do the rest of the newbie zones after this and progress into the tier 2 dungeons. I'm not comfortable enough to go straight into them with what we've got. We found some really nice items. I've never found this off of a tier 1 boss before, but I could do with some better staples. Like, the rings are absolutely terrible. And there are some better options for most of these slots, especially the armor, which this isn't going to work forever with no armor on it, just defense. Thanks for tuning in, and keep an eye out. Hopefully we'll make it to the east again on this character. I don't have the highest of hopes. Ghouls are kind of hard to keep alive, but we'll make a good effort at it.